What is up, guys? Today I thought that I would do a more relatively fun video topic, and by fun, I mean that for some reason you guys love it when I start talking about games. And I realized that I have had this thought in my mind for a long time, but I just never put it together. And I said, let's do that at some point in the near future. And that is that when I was a kid, due to the limitations of consoles, especially in the graphics department and mechanics department, I realized that my experience in gaming was never really fulfilled. Like, you guys know, I don't play video games anymore, but just because I don't play them anymore doesn't mean that I did not enjoy them when I had my time playing them. And on top of that, that I wouldn't be interested at all. It's something major would need to happen in order for me to start playing games again. For instance, having the time to do it and not having to worry about making ends meet. And on top of that, being able to budget games these days because they're so incredibly expensive compared to what I was used to back in the early 2000s. So even if you adjusted for inflation, I cannot afford to be spending on games. But what I want to do with this topic, the discussion that I'll be having today, is the mechanics limitations that kept me from enjoying certain games or stuff that I wish I could have experienced in games back in the day. And if you guys have heard of any of these games that I'm about to mention, and you know that an updated version exists that includes all of this that I'm talking about, please let me know because I literally have no idea. I have not kept up with games in the last decades or so. So, the first thing I want to mention is that when I was a kid, I was so frustrated that we did not have a real, true, open world Dragon Ball Z game. And what I mean by that is, you know, that the wonderful world of Dragon Ball Z is you have multiple planets that you visit, and your characters have the ability to fly, blow up shit, power up, run, jump, fight, stuff like that. So I would expect that you can incorporate some kind of a mechanic that makes it feel like a Grand Theft Auto game where you can, or a Spider-Man game like Spider-Man 2. That was a pretty cool game because Spider-Man 1 for the PS2, you could not even make it to the street. Like, you could see the animation of cars, but I'm like, why in the hell can I not be walking in the streets? This is a the setting of this game is in New York City, and my character is swinging from webs that attach to the clouds and not really the buildings. So what in the hell am I playing, you know? So when Spider-Man 2 came out, I was excited because I'm like, ooh, finally it can web into the buildings like it's supposed to. And you actually have to calculate stuff just right so that you can maneuver through the city. But when it comes to Dragon Ball Z, I thought that Budokai 3 would be that game because of the screenshots that I was seeing. Like, at the time that it came out, I really didn't know about how to watch videos online. And as far as I know, YouTube was not a thing back then, like 2004. So even if it was a thing back then, it's like I didn't know about it because I was not really nearly as computer savvy. But I thought that there was this screenshot of Goku that now I know is in the Grandpa Gohan's house stage, and it's when you go out of bounds, you crash into, like, I think it's a mountain or a hill or something. Of course, you take damage, and then the screenshot comes from the trajectory of the character coming back into the fighting stage. And I'm like, bitch, I thought that meant that this was going to finally be the Dragon Ball Z game that I've been waiting for and anticipating and wanting, which is an explorative type of Dragon Ball Z. Sure, we got Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3 with its little dragon universe where the little mechanics of you doing the story mode is that you can fly over the galaxy, and it's not even so much flying over the galaxy when you're already inside the planet exploring only so much of it. And it's not like you can actually wander around in those settings. It's all it's all about the map. You fly to that place, you have a little bit of a quest, usually a fight, or you can fight a really strong character on some battle points and grind your way through training, unless you have unlocked the Dragon Arena. That would be a more efficient way. But I always thought it lacked in the experience department because I'm like, come on, you have the mechanic for flying around. So why can you not incorporate exploring a city, exploring a town, exploring the wilderness? So when Tenkaichi came out, I was like, oh, great, fantastic. This is finally going to be it. This is going to be the game that lets me explore, except that it wasn't. Tenkaichi 2 came out, and I'm like, great, finally. It's like Budokai 3, I can wander all over the world flying, and then I land, and my character can walk toward an item, but it still has boundaries. It still doesn't let me explore an area like I want to. So there was another game, Dragon Ball Z game called Infinite World. It was kind of open worldish, but the mechanics sucked. Nobody talks about that game because that game was an absolute failure. I never owned it. To be truthful, I never played it. But I did not need to play it when what I was watching of it completely sucked. So if Xenoverse is finally the game that I'm looking for, you guys let me know. But from what I have watched online, it's all about fighting, fighting, fighting. And sure, the mechanics have become more complex, but it still doesn't feel like the GTA ish type of Dragon Ball Z game that I'm looking for. So, once again, a real open world Dragon Ball Z game, if that game exists, you guys let me know what's the console, what's the name of the game, and I might check it out. You'll love Spider Man in PS4. Interesting. I have not seen any of it, but I did hear of like when the last Spider-Man game came out, everyone was super wild about it. Like absolutely everyone. It was trending and they were saying this is an amazing Spider-Man game and everyone needs to check it out and I'm like, well, too bad I'm not a gamer anymore, but I always wanted to see that in a Dragon Ball Z game. And Final Bout was for the PS1, and let's face it, it's worse than I remember. I never owned it, I never played it, but I did watch my cousin play it, and I could not bear it. Back then, I thought it was the shit. Like I wanted that game really badly, but looking back, no, no, there's no way I can downgrade from the mechanics that I know, which were PS2. But it's good that such a long time has passed that now I can remember what I grew up with and see what you guys have now and I'm like games have come a long way, but something about what I grew up with still it gives me a unique sense. Like the nostalgia is still there. To the point that freaking what is it? Sony came out with like a new PlayStation or something that's a classic. It includes classic games in it. I'm happy you are explaining all the games because I don't know much about them. Well, my memory is vague on some of these, and it is necessary for me to explain what is going on because otherwise I cannot really explain what I'm trying to like project here. But yeah, basically a Dragon Ball Z open worldly experience. That is the game that I searched for during my childhood, and it never arrived in my life. All right. Another game that I thought of that I would have loved to have played is Pokemon, like in the Game Boy versions. Basically, this is another open worldly type of game, but I thought that Gale of Darkness in the GameCube was going to be like that. It wasn't. Pokemon XD. I thought that Colosseum was going to be it. It wasn't. Like, it had open world elements to it, but it still had silly boundaries. Like the map was too small. Unlike the Game Boy version's Pokemon, where you could go from city to city and it all just came together. In the Ruby version, you could dive and explore some spots in the ocean. You could go into caves, you had to have flashlights, and I would imagine that you would have a Pokemon game that gives you, like, say, you can walk with Charmander next to you, and then he can use his tail to illuminate your path in a dark cave. Something like that. And I know that there's a Pokemon game for, like, what's that little handheld device? The DS, Nintendo DS, that is definitely better looking than those things we had back in the 90s. But I'm talking about that game, but in a bigger console. Like, what is the matter? Why can we not have it, like, in the GameCube version or the whatever thing surpassed the GameCube that's a bigger console for your television or whatever it is? I would imagine that maybe you can link your DS to TV, but I'm not technical like that. So you guys let me know if that is possible. But I find that you can stick anything to the TV now. And Pokemon Stadium 2 allowed us to play the Pokemon games from the Game Boy using the Stadium game as the Game Boy projector type of deal. You needed to have like a special thing, a special gadget that goes under the controller, and then you insert the cassette there or like the cartridge there. But like it's still the same graphics that you had on your Game Boy, which I get it. That's the capacity of the cartridge. But how about if you take that cartridge game and turn it into a better game with better mechanics, better graphics, better console, better controller, better interaction between characters and the environment and people. So that is the Pokemon game that I was waiting for in my childhood that simply never came. I wanted an open world Pokemon where it's pretty much playing the Game Boy version but in a greater console. And I'm not very fond of handheld devices because my phone is pretty much it for me now. But that's I missed out on that so much, and I still to this day feel like I do not feel like my gaming quest is complete until I experience that. I'll probably be a terrible gamer now, but that is most definitely a game that I wanted to play. Um, Hello, Garuda. Is it true some games have been outlawed? From what I heard, yeah, there are some games, particularly old ones that I can recall that never made it to the States because of their rating or something, or their theme. And I feel like some games that are available in the United Kingdom are not available in the States and vice versa. And then there are some games that saw a Japanese release, but they never made it to the States or anywhere else in the world. Unfortunately, I cannot think of any titles off the top of my head because the only games that I mostly recognize are the games that I either played or observed, and those were definitely not it. But I know that San Andreas was particularly controversial back in the day. I don't think that it ever got banned. Like, it was available way after the fact, but I don't think it ever got outlawed, but it definitely had a lot of warnings for parents that this game is particularly, violent and shit. But that never stopped my mom from getting it. But yeah, it also had like suggestive themes, but it didn't show anything. And God of War was definitely another game that it was like extremely what is it, rated when it comes to being gory and whatnot. Like it had an M rating. So, but outside of that, I cannot think of games that were really outlawed all the way. But I can see why people would want to see them outlawed. But I think sometimes it's just reaching. Like it's a game, and if you're trying to say that games are going to ruin a person's personality, I think you need to reevaluate yourself because y- you can be a bad person with or without video games. But it's all about how you manifest your emotions and behave. So I don't think that games are to blame for all of society's problems. See what I mean? So anytime someone had that type of an attitude back in the day, that's when I had issues. but uh but yeah, If you guys know any games that maybe I'm thinking about that have gotten outlawed or never made it to certain countries and why, feel free to express it in the comments because it's been a minute since I brushed up on any of this info. But I'm pretty sure that there have been games that officially were like banned across the board, but I'm not very well informed on that. But I have heard of that stuff happening. Um, Another game that for some reason I wanted later on, like more toward my adolescence years, was some kind of a game in which you can explore the ocean. So someone out there needs to develop an Aquaman game that is closely resembling the movie because I thought that the movie was pretty cool. There is a lot of stuff that didn't make sense when it comes to like a fighting scene. It's like a whole lot of whatever is happening on the screen right now. But as long as you focus on the main characters, it doesn't take away from the experience. But I think a game in which you can explore trenches, you can see marine life, you can explore like the what is it that closer to the shore shales, the bottom of the ocean, like the hydrothermal vents and continental stuff. Just, I think that would be pretty amazing. And it might seem kind of boring, so I think you should promote this game as an educational game more than anything. You know, those flight simulators that they have for the computer where it actually takes real time information on how to fly a plane and you can integrate real time weather. You need to actually know how to power on the plane. It's not like if you have a PS2 controller, you can fly a plane by pressing X. That serves as your acceleration, and then square is brakes in the air, and slows down your plane and shit, like in San Andreas. Nothing like that. You actually do need to understand about aviation in order to be able to fly in flight simulators. So basically, an ocean simulator where you can either be some kind of an ocean creature or you can be a superhuman that can talk to ocean creatures, interact with it like Aquaman can, or you can just explore it via a vessel. So basically, have a collection of anything that is a wonder of the ocean, like the Titanic and the other shipwrecks and airplane wrecks and all that junk included in the game, and just make it interesting to explore somehow. Maybe each shipwreck or something has a ghost in it that you gotta fight or something. I don't know. But I've always wanted a game in which I can just explore the ocean because I like me some ocean movies, but we never really had a game like that. And Nemo is kind of a too much of a childish game to really count that. I mean, it's good. I love Nemo, but it doesn't bring to me what I am looking for when it comes to this idea of mine when it comes to an ocean game, if that makes sense. We still don't have an open world Pokemon game. Pokemon Sword and Shield looks like it may be, but not sure. See, that's the thing. They always tease us on trailers that that's finally how it's going to be. The whole reason I see this as possible is we have Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. That game was huge. So why can we not have a Pokemon game like that? Metal Gear Solid 4, ooh, not Metal Gear Solid 4, but Metal Gear Solid 5, it was pretty open worldish. The map was pretty big. I'm not sure that it delivered everything that I would have hoped for in the game. Like, I'm not even sure at this point after 2015. I'm not even sure what the hell I was looking forward to in MGS5. But I'm saying that in Grand Theft Auto, you can determine what you're going to do every time you sit down and play that game. You can do missions, you can just grind for money, you can give rides to certain people, you can what is it? Isn't there people who have like side quests for you, or is this another game? I feel like that might be another game. But you can even go to gyms like in San Andreas, you could go to certain gyms and you could learn certain fighting styles. And just like Devil May Cry, if you choose a sword, you can You can be a trickster in Devil May Cry 3. You can be a trickster. You can be a gunslinger. You can be a dark slayer or something if you're Virgil. Things like that. So basically, just give us more options when it comes to games like that, like Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z. Like, please, there's a lot of potential there, and I know that the idea has been out there all this time. Why don't we have that game yet? Could it be that it's like Apple, where I'm pretty sure that the ultimate phone is already out there. It exists, it's been developed. But in order to keep money flowing, it's like, let's release a phone this year that has an extra camera. Let's release a phone this year that doesn't have the home button. Let's like the phone, the ultimate phone is already out there with the best pixels, with the best interface, the best everything. It's already out there, but for the sake of keeping you spending, they're going to say, we're going to just release little bits and pieces at a time. So, with Dragon Ball Z games, maybe that's what they're doing. It's like, let's release Xenoverse, whatever it is that makes that game great and fantastic now, whatever mechanics it has that we have never seen before, and let's make it to where if you have players be online, you can all play together. And, let's introduce that mechanic, even though it has been possible for years, but they only now decided to make it a big deal because you can capitalize off it. So I understand that business may have a lot to do with why we're not getting the games that we are hoping for and looking forward to, but it's like, come on, if you don't have the intention of releasing it anytime soon, be transparent with the consumer, especially if you know that that's what they're looking for. Because I'll never forget my disappointment with Budokai 3. It's like I was playing it and I'm like, here it comes! I get to play an open world game, except that the mechanics are still limited, you know? So I just felt deceived in a sense. I was looking forward to that game for so long, and when I played it, I was like, what the fuck? You know? So, anyways. Um, let's see, where am I at? Okay, things. The closest I know about a game being outlawed was a game called Hatred. I don't think I heard about that one. But it doesn't sound good just from the title. If you could make out with Superman, Spider Man, or Batman, who would you choose? Well, honestly, none of the above because I really don't think about that. But if I had to date one of them to where that became a thing, I would say Superman. Superman just seems more convincing, but at the same time, I need to make sure that he's actually as safe for me as he was for Lois Lane because it's never really explained how an alien could possibly be dating someone who's not from the same race as he is. Because it's like, this is the guy who can turn his eyes into like heat. This is the same guy who can crush anything. Like, how does Superman even shave? Like, how is his hair compatible with the instruments that we have for him to shave for it to be possible? Unless he uses like his heat vision and takes care of it in that manner. See what I mean? So, anytime I think about a superhero and the potential to date them, it's like there's a whole lot that can go wrong. So, but anyways, if we it depends what generation of Superman we're talking about because if you were to ask me about James Bond, none of the James Bonds that are out there, it's like none of them melt my underwear, so it's not like anything could happen. See what I mean? So yeah, it depends which Superman we're talking about. But but you guys can imagine which Superman I would definitely be into. But anyways, that was a weird question, but I enjoyed answering it. It's good to get out of my comfort zone here and there. That ocean game sounds sweet. I'm glad that you think so because anything that doesn't include action or potentially violence or something, I can see why it wouldn't sell probably. But I have always enjoyed simulations of things. Like, if we had a game about exploring a volcano, I would fucking buy it. Like, we had Mario for the N64, you could sort of explore a volcano in that game. Zelda Breath of the Wild had it had that Goron place that like Ocarina of Time. You had a bit of a volcano there, but it still doesn't really satisfy me. But basically, nature games would be appealing for me. I'm not entirely sure how I would go about the graphics. I don't think that I want something realistic. I want something to remind me that this is simply a game, but add elements fiction to it, like that ghost story that I was saying. Put a ghost on the Titanic. Put the ghost of freaking Jack and Rose in it. I don't fucking care. Just make it appealing enough to where it could sell. Like haunted ocean stories, like something like that. I would buy it. I swear, I would buy it. But anyways, I see why not everybody would do that. When it comes to phones and games, I used to have the Engage by Nokia from around 2003 or 2004, and it was great and had some really fun games. The only games that I remember from cell phones was the little snake game, like the snake would gradually grow as you ate the dot in the screen, and eventually it got an upgrade to where you could see its little mouth opening and shit. And I'm like, oh crap, we're moving forward. But I never thought how just from 2007 ish, I never thought that phones would change like that. I always thought that to use a computer, I would need a laptop or a desktop, and that's a computer, and not that I can have a computer within a phone, and a phone can also be a GPS, and a GPS can also be a recorder, and a camcorder, and a camera, and all of that stuff. It's crazy. This all happened at such a quick rate in such a short time that makes you wonder how long this technology has actually been out there for, but they're just giving us little bits and pieces at a time to keep capitalizing off the new functions that a phone can do, but anyways, it's fun to speculate and just think a little bit on the dark side of things. Were you into role playing games when you were a gamer? To be honest with you, no. No, not at all. Like all the games I played were pretty much any picture that you have seen in my room. I only played Pokemon, I only played Devil May Cry, I only played what else did I play? Ace Combat. I really do not have such a broad experience as you may think. Pokemon, like the stadium games and anything that I have made a video of, pretty much that's all that I have played. But I don't know why. Like I just did not immerse myself into that stuff. but but anyways, whatever I did play, I did enjoy. And it's like music. If I see something, listen to something, and I can dig it, fine. I got it, I own it, I'll buy it. But for me to be okay, this is my genre, no matter what. I'm a pop music person. Nah, nah, it doesn't work like that. Let's see. Oh, you guys remember if you played Vice City, you guys remember the airport and how you had commercial airplanes that would take off and everything? I always wanted to either be able to ride one of those or fly one of those. And especially the ones that were like parked, I always tried looking for a way to climb them or something. And I was always looking for ways to unlock mechanics in a game that I knew it didn't have. Like you could only fly this one tiny plane that could also land on water, and it only had like one little propeller on the nose. But I mean, every time I would be near the airport area, I just wanted to fly one of those or fly in one of those. But anyways, it never happened. And I know that you have like a mission where you can go to Liberty City or something. And then there's also Liberty City Stories, which I never played. That is a tongue twisting thing for me to say. Liberty. Anyways, but yeah, I don't know anything about it. So is that game any good? You guys let me know if you ever played it, because I know nothing about it. And then here is one of the most important things that I'll ever mention, and one of you guys is going to be excited about hearing this one. That is, I wish that we could play the Shell 2 side of Metal Gear Solid 2 as Solid Snake Plissken. Like, we need that game, but I'm sure we're never going to get it. Like, I was always anticipating a time when you would go from Raiden back to Snake and play the Snake side of the story. But then, especially when you beat Fat Man, I think about how Snake would talk about how his progress was going on the Shell 2 core and stuff, or Shell 2 struts. And I'm like, when do we get to play that? So they should have had another CD in which you play the Raiden part and the Snake part, and we don't miss out on that. But I felt so disrespected. It was like such a disservice to not have that in the game. I feel like Snake got the better side of the big shell. So that will always be something that I'll always be curious about and wish that I could have played. And it always seems like, based on the name of those struts, it feels like they were so much more interesting. I can't remember the name of them. I wish I would have looked them up before streaming this. But the names of those other ones, like L and everything, they sound so much better than what we have on the show one. But I mean, Metal Gear Solid 2 is still a great game. Like, I love it with every fiber of my being, but even the tanker felt like it was limited. In the tanker, you have so much potential to get lost, but the capabilities of PS2 games tend to be that the games are linear. I'm like, tankers are pretty big from what I understand about them, which is not a whole lot, but I can see that they're big things. So for you to have been able to breeze through it is very suspicious. So it would have been great to have a 2 CD game to where, if you're not careful about where you're going when you're Snake in the tanker, you can get lost and you can end up trapped in places and then have to figure out your way to sneak out. You can do damage to the ship if you're not careful. Like, do not launch missiles inside the tanker or something, which you don't really acquire that weapon during that chapter, thank God. But it's like, it would be nice to implement mechanics like that. Like, hey, you need to defeat this foe, but be careful, because if you upset the ship too much, it can blow up and the mission will fail because you're gonna die. Like, so many ideas, so much stuff that you can do from that. So I'm not saying that the developers never think about this stuff, like it never occurs to them. I know that the technology for them was limited at the time, but we still don't have that game. We should have that game. We should have a game like that. But anyways, I thought that I would get that out of my system because to this day I still hurt over the fact that we did not play as Snake Plissken. That pissed a lot of people off, I hear. Absolutely. Like, you know what it's like that we do not even get a heads up that at some point you can expect to not be Snake anymore? Like, I'm pretty sure that's the whole reason why we buy those games in the first place. We want to be Snake. Snake is the man. Snake is what we're there for. Snake is the story. Snake is everything. So, for us to have had that taken away from us without you letting us know in the trailers or something that, hey, you're going to be this new character after 20 minutes into the game, it's offensive. It hurts. So, but anyways, for me personally, I got over it. The cutscenes were great, but still, that is a game that I need in my life. In order to feel like my Metal Gear experience is complete, I need to be able to play the Shell 2 part with Snake, as Snake. And while on the note of Metal Gear, another thing that would have been great about those games would be to play as a different unit. Like, how about if I can be Liquid Snake and like evil rogue side of Foxhound? Or how about if I can be a part of the Cobras and play as the boss and have my own little separate standalone game when it comes to that? Or Dead Cell. I don't really care about Dead Cell like that, especially since most of them, they don't make it. But, or in fact, none of them make it. But it would have been great to be able to pick your unit, and during the game, they talk about how much they do, like the genome soldiers and this and that. How about if you command that unit? You know, it's just that sometimes I feel like games do not allow us to be the antagonist. Like, why can the antagonist not be successful? Like, I know you try to promote the idea that if you are evil, someone is going to thwart your plans, but evil has happened in this planet, so why can it not happen in video games to where evil reigns, like, I'm not saying that there's no story in which the bad guys are the ones that, like, uh reign or something, but I'm saying that when it comes to games like this, we could do a whole lot more with them. I would have enjoyed playing a sniper wolf. If we can play a sniper wolf, it's like, yes, what is her story? There's more to them. How do you truly become a pro? If you're part of the Foxhound unit and you're among the best of the best in your field, how did you become the best of the best? What's your experience? We know Snake's resume. So, what made Sniper Wolf be such a good sniper? Like, she tells her story, but, like, what were her experiences that made her a pro? I think that would have been interesting. Just like, uh, let's say Marvel, the cinematic universe, it has standalone movies for every single character, it seems. Then why can we not have standalone games about other characters from games, But, anyways, I thought I would throw that out there because I think that the units in Metal Gear Solid are interesting enough to where I see people participating in forums and they don't stay stuck with Snake. People are fans of Liquid, people are fans of Ocelot, people are fans of Kaz and all them people. So why not make a game in which you're them and you're commanding whatever unit it is that they command? Or what if you're subjected to whatever unit it is that the boss of that unit is commanding? Like if I'm Sniper Wolf, I gotta do whatever Liquid feels like telling me that I gotta do. You know? So, anyways, I think that that was worth mentioning. And then finally, another game that I think would have absolutely been worth it to have, which would definitely satisfy the open worldliness that I'm looking for in Dragon Ball Z. It's the Legacy of Goku 2 and Boo's Fury. If you have never heard of those games, you probably were not wild about the Game Boy Advance. But let me tell you, genuinely, Dragon Ball Z, The Legacy of Goku 2, that was my favorite Dragon Ball Z game. And I played it for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, endlessly. But I feel like it would have been even better to experience it in a bigger console. Like for a Game Boy game, it was pretty good. Like it was amazing, it was entertaining, it had everything that I was looking for in a game, except that the flying was not available during battles. But as a game overall, I enjoyed it. I loved it. So we could have a Legacy of Goku for like the PlayStation, and that would be great. That would be amazing. I'm sure that there's people out there who would agree with me if you played any of those games. And then Boo's Fury only took the greatness of the Legacy of Goku 2 and it took it a step farther. Like I personally never played Boo's Fury. I had a friend who played it in my presence, and I'm like, okay, sure, this game is great. I don't need to really play it since I have the Legacy of Goku too. But I ended up watching a full walkthrough, and I'm like, wow, this game is amazing. Had I had it as a kid, I would have had no life. Like I wouldn't have slept. I wouldn't have gone out on the weekends to ride my bicycle or anything. So I hope that they won't, but I would hope that they would consider developing those games into a better console now, or at least rebooting them somehow, because I thought those games were amazing. So there is a lot of potential in those games, and I feel like they're severely underrated. or maybe they're underrated now because they were big back in their day, but social media was not huge to where I could see that everyone was hooked to those games like I was. But it seems like some people do know about it and they share their stories and their experiences and do playthroughs with it. But I feel like now that we have more reach as content creators, we have those big gamers out there. Maybe they could bring attention to those games, and I think it's worth it. Just because they were made for the Game Boy Advance doesn't mean that they're not entertaining. So anyways, guys, that's pretty much it on my end. That I could think of. If I come up with new things to add or that I missed here, I'll be sure to do a follow up video. But you guys feel free to say anything. The floor is open. I really don't have anything else to add on this one. But yeah, those were pretty much the things that as a kid I was always wishing for, hoping for, looking for in a game or games. And I never got it. So I feel like I have not been fully satisfied when it comes to being a gamer. So if any of these games that I just described exist out there, or if you guys in the future hear about it, trust me, I will not find out about it. So make sure that you tell me in the comments or something, and I will consider checking them out. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and I will see you soon. I used to buy so many Dragon Ball Z games. LOL. That was totally me. Uh, Action figures, games, soundtracks, posters, albums. I had everything.